Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll deny it all later.
He was drunk.
That's right. Not yet. It's after 5 in Germany. All right, so I'll start with a PowerPoint. This is our COO from CVU Germany. Okay, a little bit about our company. In a nutshell, we're headquartered in Germany, in Frankfurt. We're publicly traded in Europe, and we're probably best known as having been a publisher of PC-based games, a lot of strategy games, Blitzkrieg, Codename Panthers, Warfront, and so forth. In the last year or two, we branched out and got away a little bit from the strategy realm, but didn't really go away from the PC platform. Had some successes with City Life, with Dark Star 1, and most recently with Sherlock Holmes The Awakened. And this is 2008 is our year where we really are positioning ourselves in Europe as a worldwide service provider to the interactive entertainment industry. And then in North America, we're still a traditional publisher, but now focusing really on all platforms. So as of this event, we're right now producing products for the PS3, for the Xbox 360, and for the PC with Sacred 2. And then some of you have already seen the other products. We've got a Wii title and 3DS titles also in the queue between now and early 2009. Okay, so Sacred. The original Sacred, the Sacred series, we consider a top 10 action RPG in Europe, probably even stronger, probably a top 3. Sold almost 2 million units worldwide. PC Gamer voted it or elected it as RPG of the year in 2004 when it came out. And our plan right now is to release the PC version at the end of September, and the console versions simultaneously on PS3 and Xbox 360 are right now aiming for the first week of November. The biggest differentiator from product, the key feature, is probably the multiplayer. It's an action RPG, so it's hack and slash driven. But we're also offering truly seamless drop-in and drop-out multiplayer, and I talked about that a little bit before. On the PC version, you'll have up to 16 people that can play together. On the console version right now, it's 4. And for example, on the Xbox 360, and my colleague Mike will be able to give you a little bit more of a demonstration of the console version, so you can also visually see the differences. You'll have the share screen versus the split screen and so forth. This is usually where I show a quick trailer. We had the heavy metal band Blind Guardian do a custom song for this game called Sacred. Very, very cool, very hip. They're also going to come out and spend some time with us at Comic-Con and sign autographs and stuff. So, and maybe Penny Arcade Expo also. They really got behind this game, and one of the side quests in the game will actually be finding their lost instruments, which are kind of like almost like medieval weapons more than instruments. And when you find them all, they actually appear in-game and will perform the song in-game. We just had a great time in Budapest visiting one of the motion capture events where they're actually all going to be in the game, and they had a blast with it. I'll show you guys a trailer after this.
On the console, the 4-player multiplayer, is that just online only, right? No local, like co-op?
Also, actually, thank you. I lost my train of thought there. Actually, it was a great question there. On the Xbox 360, you'll be able to play 2-player, just by plugging in a second controller. You can have up to 4 consoles, basically. So you can have 4 individual consoles or 2 consoles with 2 players with 2 controllers each, any combinations of that as well, both LAN as well as using Xbox Live.
Okay, what about PS3?
All I know is going to be 4. It's a similar configuration, so I don't know that all the details have been completely worked out.
You don't think it's going to be 2 at once?
I think they're doing the same approach. I can try and confirm that before the end of the day for you, but that's definitely the goal. I mean, the actual goal is to try and provide more players than are limited. So these are the 6 characters that you can play in the game. Another key feature, the only character that came across from the original Sacred is the Seraphim on the far left. She's kind of like an angel that's the guardian of this world of Ancaria. Most of the Seraphim are a little disenchanted with this world because the rest of the inhabitants have gotten a little bit out of control and power hungry. Most of the areas are embroiled in a civil war, fighting for this power called the T-energy. And the T-energy is a key component of the game. In small doses, it allows life to evolve naturally. But if you abuse it or you apply too much of it, it causes mutations and negative magic and so forth. So the Seraphim is a kind of the common character. One of the other important pieces I should point out, this action actually takes place 2,000 years before the original game. So it's a prequel and provides some of the backstory to what happened in Sacred and how the world came to be. The other characters right now that we talked about, I'll talk about this briefly at a high level. The Shadow Warrior, he's kind of a tank, heavy armor and so forth. He's a fallen human general that was called back from the dead by his elven lord. And so he has a little bit of an affinity for the undead, and his powers are either combat, defensive, attack type of powers, but he can also summon some undead and has special abilities related to that. The High Elf. The elves in this game are a little different from the Tolkien-esque type of high elves or elves where they're kind of idealized versions of what we'd like humans to be, I guess. In Sacred 2, the high elves are actually a little bit aloof, disdain humans, use humans as somewhere between servants and slaves, and they are powerful magic wielders, and they also have ranged capabilities. The Dryad is a descendant of the elves also. They live in a matriarchal tree society. If you want to think of kind of like the Ewoks lived up in trees in the Star Wars trilogy, that's kind of what their living arrangements are as well. And they live off on an island by themselves. They have voodoo and power and poison weapons and so forth, and really tend to be very closely affiliated with nature. The Temple Guardian, which we haven't fully unveiled yet, is a very unique character, kind of almost like a sci-fi character. A little bit of a cyborg, so it's part animal, part human, part machine. And the last character is the Inquisitor, which is the ultimate evil. All of these characters, except for the Seraphim and the Inquisitor, you can play from a light or a shadow campaign perspective. The Seraphim you can only play as the light campaign, and the Inquisitor you can only play as the shadow campaign. In multiplayer, whoever's campaign you join, or whoever creates the campaign, is basically the perspective you're going to share. So if you join somebody else's, you can actually see a totally different version of the campaign, if you will. Let's see if there's anything else here. Okay, so I talked about the light and shadow campaign. I talked about the combat arts. There's a total of 15 combat arts that each character has that's unique to that character. I'll talk about this more in-game a little bit. Every character can use mounts for combat and transportation, and each character also has their own special mount that is part of a special quest you can actually unlock. And it says 600 quests. We're somewhere in the goal of between 500 and 600 total quests that are in there. Talked about multiplayer a little bit. The difficulty for the party, if you have other people join your game and so forth, the difficulty of the monsters and your encounters will scale up or down dynamically. You'll also trigger party drops, so there's unique items that will only be dropped if you're playing in a cooperative game, so that's another nice feature. The world is handcrafted. It's about 22 square miles, and it's not randomly generated. I'll show you the map in a little while, and you kind of see, and you really will know with each region when you are somewhere else based on visual feedback, the way it looks, the sounds you hear, the inhabitants, the types of monsters you're going to encounter and so forth. It's definitely a huge world. It's about 1.5 times bigger than both the original game and its first expansion was, so it's really massive.
What's the engine?
They actually have their own engine. And they also, I'm trying to think, they integrated speed tree, geophysics, or I guess now NVIDIA physics is in there for some of the ragdoll effects and so forth. So they've used a couple middleware solutions, but other than that, it's their own engine. It's in development for about 4 years now, a team of about 90. And one of the other aspects I was mentioning earlier is basically we're aiming to not only drive the latest, greatest, biggest hardware that you can get, particularly on the PC, of course. We're also trying to scale down well so that if you have a mobility machine or so forth, that you'll also be able to play the game and enjoy it with relatively modest requirements. That's our goal for this. Some buzz. Okay, that's all the marketing stuff. There we go. I'll show this real quick. Not directly. Some of you may have seen this already. This was our Blind Guardian video. The build is probably about 8 weeks old in terms of the graphics that you're seeing right now, so it's definitely even every week or so the game looks even better. And I'll show you the in-game here in a few minutes to compare. actually the lead singer of the band in the game. And obviously the rest of the band came there too.
Can you explain the weapon quest again? So is it weapon or instruments or?
They're instruments.
Okay.
They're just they're stylized so they look more like cool weapons.
Okay.
And then when you get them for the band and bring them all together, unite them, they basically come in and play them. You know, you don't ever have to do it to finish the game.
On the games for Windows, does it work with live on Windows? Is it
We
this
are
only?
no, not on games for Windows. Yeah, we're still kind of waiting through that process right now. So
Is there even an option to make it? It's not an option to make it cross-platform.
it would. I guess it would be an option, but if other much bigger companies than ours with their own products can't even quite pull it off right, then it's probably futile for us to try and do that. So it was just a design decision to leave the different platforms separately. I'm sure at some point there'll be some convergence, but it's not probably going to be 2008. So, all right.
3008 maybe.
Huh?
3008 maybe.
Maybe we'll see. So at the top, you get to pick your character. This is still placeholder interface here. You get to pick a deity, and the deity basically gives you 5 unique combat arts, and also gives you secondary quests that are unique to that deity. So not only depending on which character you play, but whether you played the light or the shadow campaign, or whether you pick a god, those are all variables that change the way the campaign appears to you, so you have a lot of replay value in that. We think that if you play as just one character on just one side, primarily concentrating on the main quest for the campaign, you're looking at about 25 to 26 hours of gameplay, but obviously we want you to try different characters, equip them differently, and try the campaign light and shadow, and obviously also do a lot of co-op gaming. Free play is kind of a mode to level up. You don't get any of the main quest things in there, but you get all the secondary quests, and it's a quick way to kind of cooperatively or individually level up your characters and so forth. And then you'll have I think there's going to be a total of 4 difficulty levels as well for the campaign. Just kind of jump in here a little bit. And after this, we've got an 8-player multiplayer setup on the PC next door. If you guys want some hands-on time, which I think is probably going to give you a much better experience of what the game is really like. And then also, of course, I can take you over and show you the PS3 and the Xbox 360 versions, and you can also play some of that hands-on and see how it feels. Keep in mind that the console version is probably about 4 to 6 weeks behind in development, so they're not going to be quite as smooth, and the graphics haven't been optimized and so forth. So this is the Seraphim. Alright, so let me just explain a couple different things here. Alright, first of all, the attributes are fairly standard role-playing attributes. They impact your abilities. Underneath you have skills. As you improve, as you level up, you'll be able to basically select your skills. And the skills can impact your standard combat attacks and defenses. Or you can see, for example, over here we have revered technology lore. Over here you have a revered technology. So that actually gives you skill points within your combat arts. And you see these green bars. As you level up with skill points, if you notice, like some of these have a little dot underneath. Those are different modes and modifications of your combat arts. So not all combat arts are the same. If you want to look at it as a text tree for a combat art, that's probably a good way, or different modalities. So for example, my default kind of a lightning bolt called the Baneful Smite gives me a flash. One of the options might be for me to choose at some point as I level up. Do I want to keep that where it just increases the damage it does to one target, or do I want that to do the same damage and then bounce off to my next target and do a lesser degree? So you can really kind of tweak how these abilities work, and each of them has a total of basically 3 modalities that you can pick. And then obviously multiply that by 15. The other thing you're able to do is create combos or chain these different attacks together. So obviously drains you very heavily, very quickly, but it's a massive attack. So, oops, I just died. So obviously God mode is not on. But so if you want to do a lightning bolt, a fireball, a wall of fire, and do that back-to-back very quickly, you can do that, but then you're going to be weakened, and it'll take a little while for your powers to regenerate. Let's see what else we have. Your inventory system A very classical grid. That's another major difference for the PC version versus other versions. Because on the console, we didn't want you to really have to sit here and manage and drag across grids and try to place things. So we've done some innovative things that allow you to very quickly pick the best items in your inventory for your situation. As you complete one set of armor, where you have all the pieces for that armor, you get an additional boost, and there's numerous sets in there that you can complete. So it's another kind of a side quest type of thing where you're actually trying to find all the pieces for each armor set. Your mounts, as you get them, you'll be able to actually equip them with armor as well. And they all have special abilities and combat arts and so forth. So it's going to show you that.
Is this all no space? Or do you have shortcuts in it?
You actually do. Down at the bottom here, these are your quick shortcuts, basically for your pre-selected combat arts. I can swap these out. These are also keyboard driven, so you can do a quick key, or you can kind of select one, and then that's the one that you will. Same thing over here. You have multiple slots for the weapons. You can have up to 4, and as you level up, you get more of these. And they allow you then to quickly select combinations of armor and weapons. So, example might be a two-handed sword.
As you level up, you get more slots for weapons?
You get more slots, exactly. So that you can, quickly select more combinations. One maybe a ranged weapon. Maybe one, Seraphim, for example, has a dual yield capability. So maybe one is where you have 2 swords, and another one might be a shield and a sword or a hammer or some sort of staff. So you can have multiple of these combinations.
What's the level cap?
There really isn't one. There's probably a practical one somewhere over 200, just because at some point you're going to run out of things to kill, but it's reasonably high. And there's also going to be some balancing between the different characters for the co-op play. For example, it wouldn't ever make sense for the Seraphim and the Inquisitor to play together on the same team. So we've got some balancing there. Also, if your level difference is too great, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like for a first level guy to run around with a 100 level guy wouldn't be a lot of fun for one of the two. But the cool thing is anything you find, anything you experience, any loot you get, any gold you collect, you can seamlessly take it to your game, somebody else's game, back to the game you're originally playing. You don't have to decide this is a multiplayer or single-player character. Your character travels with you, and that's the same for the console as well as the...
So if gold or something like that drop in your multiplayer game, do they see it, or does that happen individually to you?
Everybody sees it if they're in the same area as you are. You're in this huge map, and this is not the map that the player is actually going to get. You're going to have a nice little fog of war map that's going to be unveiled, but you can communicate with your co-players, and you probably experience that next door, where you can also quickly join them in a group if you want to stay together and travel as a group, but you're not constrained on the same screen. So obviously if you're on a different screen and the gold drops when you're not there, whoever gets to the gold first will maybe drop it. I think experience splits equally amongst everybody that participates in that battle. I just kind of want to show you the area of the world. It's huge. It's about, like I said, 22 square miles from one end to the other. If you were to walk from the top left down to the right without fighting and assuming you knew your way, it'd take you approximately 6 hours of real-world time to make that. Obviously, we have lots of other ways to travel. There's boats, there's teleportation, there's your special mounts and so forth that you'll be able to go to.
So the teleportation, is it something like once you've been there, you can go back there?
Correct. Yep. Exactly. Kind of a Titan questy approach to it, if you will. The other thing we have 2 levels of pre-generated dungeons that are underneath, and they all look very, very different. And they actually correspond to the real-world location. Like, for example, this is the Elven area, and this is actually designed by a real-world planner. The elves live in a very prosperous area. They're the wealthiest people in the world of Ankara, if you will. And they've picked for themselves the choice location. Broad, well-planned roads, lots of water, lots of marble buildings and so forth. Whereas you see the humans are actually segregated to the north behind a wall, and they have to etch out a much harder living. A lot of hunters, a lot of brigands, a lot of thieves, a lot more of a feudal kind of England of the Middle Ages kind of a world. I'll show you a couple of the other effects here, and they remapped all my keys for this demonstration. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so obviously we have day and night cycles in here. And particularly noteworthy, with the lighting sources, everything from the way the shadows soften up. And all the interactive objects are fully implemented yet. So the other thing we have weather effects. And this is kind of, by the way, this is about the zoom in and zoom out you'll be able to do as a normal character if you want to play on the PC version.
Weather effects are all pretty much random.
Yes. Right now we're planning. Rain and fog is confirmed. Snow is also under consideration. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Just kind of want to highlight a little bit of the detail also for the character.
Would the weather affect your character? Like if it's snowing, would it be harder for you to move your character move slower? Or?
I don't know yet what the exact impact will be because I don't know that they're going to actually put snow in it. Right now, the weather effect for rain, for example, is a little bit more of just a visual type of thing. You'll see the terrain and the ground and stuff will get soaked. The character's skin and the clothing will get wet and so forth. And I haven't really noticed any real impact to movement. It's really kind of just more of an interesting, I guess, if you will. The other thing we have is different levels of wind effects. I'll just kind of show you those. And that's obviously more noticeable in different areas as well. It doesn't make the game any better by itself, doesn't play any better, but it looks great when you've got some of that diversity. Let me see where some.
Is that also cosmetic, or would that affect bow trajectories and things like that?
I think that's cosmetic because it's still pretty much a hack and slash action. Otherwise, you gotta fine tune your. As you get out of the dev camera here. One of the things too that we have, based on time of day and where you're located, you'll have different sound effects that are randomly generated. So here you kind of have this, kind of, I don't know, almost NES kind of a relaxing sounding music. Just cheating right now, teleporting around the map a little bit. Moving me too far here. Also up here in the top right corner, you kind of see the GUI that identifies your main quest, any currently selected secondary quests, as well as where enemies and friendly units are at this point. So this is kind of up in the northern region where the orcs and trolls and the humanoids are and so forth. So very primitive. They're kind of like the Klingons, if you will. Where they think they're the biggest measure of their kind is basically how well they do in battle. They don't really worry about all these mutations and so forth. They think those are quests or challenges passed down from the gods to them.
For combat, do you need to continue clicking on the enemy, or does it go into auto combat?
You do have to click on the. You do have to click. It's context sensitive. Your right and your left clicks. Your right click basically does whatever special power you have selected, if it makes sense. And your left is basically a movement, or else just a normal attack with whatever weapon you have ready at this point. Just stop me if you have any questions or anything like that.
Can you ever zoom in to first person?
You can't, not without the the camera angle. Like I said, this is about.
That's.
Will players be able to do kind of custom maps and stuff for multiplayer?
I don't know yet. It's under consideration to see how far that's going to be supported. We're also planning some content to be released post-release, if you will. I know horse armor or wizard's tower, but definitely those types of things that add value to the game without unbalancing it greatly. So just a couple more areas here just to get a feel. So this is the desert. Even though deserts are normally pretty flat, still see it's very 3D, and the terrain does impact your combat capabilities too. This wasn't populated last time I played, so desert is a very, very unfriendly place. The upside is that there are oases where you can find traders and so forth, and a lot of times they have unique items that are very valuable, very powerful. A lot of things, obviously some of the shaders are not fully tweaked yet, but you'll see they're leaving footprints in the sand and lots of little touches like that. So if you haven't figured out yet, up here in the top left, the green indicator is your experience. As it fills up, it will level up automatically, and the red half circle is your health. You can, down here, you can shortcut basically your health potions. It's right now tied to your space bar, so wherever you get low, as long as you have some, you can go ahead and use that.
The enemies can attack each other?
The enemies, yeah, actually that's a great question. The enemies actually, based on your, whether you're doing the light or shadow campaign, enemies will react differently toward you. There's different scenarios where there's civil war, and depending on which campaign you play, the basic campaign story is the same no matter which one you play, but your perspective on it is different. So for example, in the light, you might be asked to protect this mayor in this town. In the shadow one, you might be asked to either steal something from the mayor or to kill him or his men or something like that. So you're still kind of following the same general path, but how you look at it is different. And based on that, in one version, creatures or characters that would, or NPCs that would aid you might then try to harm you or might just ignore you. And also they can attack each other as well. I'm trying to think, one of the criticisms of the original Sacred was that it was really hard to get across the map because you were constantly attacked. And so it almost became a little tedious at times. That's something that worked really hard to improve by changing the way the AI works for enemies. Different enemies have different AI behaviors. Some are pack-oriented. If there's too big of a gap between your level or your party's level and the enemies, they won't attack you because either it's too boring for them or they're going to get slaughtered. Now, if you attack them, they'll defend themselves, but like this kobold right there is not actually attacking me right now. He probably won't because he's a level 6, I'm a level 11 character, so probably 1 or 2 hits I would take him out. However, if I'm not careful and I go over here and there's too many of them around, they'll start getting a little more courageous as a group and start ganging up on me. As you see now, their behavior has already changed. So that's just an example of some of the AI behavior for the monsters. Another thing is usually groups of enemies or monsters have a leader unit that has special approaches and attacks. If you take that unit out, it usually has a morale effect on the other enemies, and they'll flee or hold back temporarily. But then another one of their group will step up and become the new leader, and will have a different type of attack mechanism. So that's pretty interesting. The other thing we've got is there's, for each region, there's also bosses, which are massive monsters. Not only, obviously, are they powerful, but most of them also have special weaknesses or things that you need to exploit. Some sort of ghost area here. That you have to figure out how to actually kill the boss monsters. I think that's probably... Any questions or any...
So you said it's about 22 square miles of acreage.
Yes.
Does that
12 different major regions in the game.
Does that include the 22 square miles, anything underground, the dungeons? Or I'm just thinking, if you've got 22 miles.
I think we just looked at a linear, and then you have 2 levels below, and obviously the second level is a little bit smaller than the first one, but they all look very, very distinct. I think it's the surface area primarily they're talking about. I've actually never been asked that question. That's a good one. Any other questions?